Hi there, my name's BrookhouseK and welcome to another Planet Coaster 2 video. Now what I've done is I've created a little bit of a festive village to make the most of update 8, which has included the Festive Pack, and I've also purchased the Toy Box DLC as well. And so what I wanted to do is just have a little bit of a play with the new snow effect and use some of the new pieces. So I used one of the career maps, and this is based on building the Bifrost, because I just thought the peaks and just the scenery really felt very alpine and fitted with the snow theme. Now you might notice, if you are familiar with that map, that the mountain looks ever so slightly different, because I found that the peak just up here was stopping the snow from falling properly into the entrance area. So I chopped the top off the map and it created this gap just here, which is great for the roller coaster to go through, which I will show you later. Nearly everything except for the entrance in this park has been custom built by myself, and the first thing that I built was this Swiss chalet. So I'll put the image that I used as inspiration on the left hand side, just so you can see what I used to base this on, because I always think that if you've got an image to just use as a little bit of a guide, then the builds tend to be a little bit better. But if we look here, then the windows are custom built as well. They're not just the in-game windows, so you can actually see through them, and I think this makes the buildings far more effective because you get natural light inside the buildings as well. But then it's been decorated by a lot of the holly and the bows from the Festive Pack. Now I did really want to get the path going through these front doors, but I just couldn't make the steps appear properly from the path into the slightly raised area within the building. So what I've had to do is build the entrance around the back. So there is a shop inside the building. If we go through here, there's lots of merchandise placed around the outside of this shop, and then we've got the happy salesperson just here waiting for some customers. But I have put quite a few heaters in this shop, so it's nice and warm. Doesn't seem to be attracting many customers though just at the moment. The next thing that I built was a little stall, and I've based this on a photograph that I saw from a Christmas market. So I've decorated it with some Christmas lights and some nutcrackers, and this particular one has got just a memento in it. But then I've reused that same building a few times. We've got a coffee stall just here, and then we've got a chief beef just there, and then further down this path as well we've got a photo booth from the roller coaster. This area to the right of the Swiss chalet seemed to need a flat ride, so I put down a carousel, and then I've just used some of the festive elements just to decorate it. So we've got some biscuits and bows on the ride itself, so I've not really gone to town with that. But then around the outside I've used some of the sweet pieces, some of the fairy lights and holly, just to build a fence around the outside. And then I've got some of the toy box blocks here and the little bendy man just on the exit. Now I still need to do some more work in this area. I'm not particularly happy with it. It needs a little bit more detail, but that's for the future. To the opposite side of the path I've put down a toilet block, but I didn't really realise before just how tall these toilet blocks are. I've decorated it with the gingerbread pieces, but when we put them side by side with the stalls that I built, these seem in proportion with the people, but the toilet block seems huge in comparison. It's really tall and it just feels a little bit too large. The only thing that I've put down that wasn't custom built was this entrance, which is one of the Planet Coaster 2 blueprints for an entrance. Now I think I'll probably do something with this at some point, but I just wanted an entranceway. I have customized it slightly. I've taken the roof off and replaced it with some gingerbread, and then decorated it with a few festive elements around the front of it. But you'll notice in front of the entrance is a heater. Now what that does, as well as making all of this area here have the snow melt, it also made the snow melt on the roof, and it stops it from looking quite as festive. So I've used some of the snow pieces just to add snow back to the roof. Now if we swing round from the entrance just over here, then we've got a helter-skelter, but I'm quite pleased with this, and the guests seem to like it as well. And I've decorated it with the Christmas tree piece, but just repeated it lots of times, attaching it with a different angle so it fits the outside of the helter-skelter, but it makes for quite an effective Christmas tree, and I quite like it just sat here on this part of the park. A lot of this park is still work in progress. There's lots more that I can do at it, but we're going to go and finally look at this coaster, and I'm particularly proud of the coaster and the station building itself. I think it's turned out really well, and so most of this station I've used elements from the Sorcery Pack, so they are keep parts, but there are lots of little other bits that have been added just to bring it into the theme of an ice palace. So I've used the icicles from the Festive Pack. Then there are sorcery pieces here. These are sorcery crystals, but they've just been coloured white, so they look again like icicles. If we go in, I've attached some of those ice crystal, those sorcery pieces, to the front of this building, so they glow up when it's dark, and that's quite nice. And then I've used some icicles here as an entrance, and that kind of reminds me of Superman's Fortress of Solitude. Now if we go into the queue, I've used some of these archways just to delineate the queue, but because I've put heaters along the queue, it's melted all the snow. So I've started to put down snow pieces, and I think I need to do a little bit more of that, because where the snow melts, it stops the illusion of it being a festive area, and so I shall have to put down more snow pieces, as I've done just here around the entrance to the coaster, because the snow melts because of the heaters. Let's have a little tour of the coaster before we finally ride it. Now it comes out of the station building here and then up onto the top of the mountain, up this lift hill, before diving into a tunnel through the mountain. Once it comes out of the tunnel after the lift hill, it goes through this gap here that I created by chopping the top off the mountain. As the train comes through that gap, it then comes down this little section here and enters my favourite section, around this hairpin bend and over a roll here that's really satisfying, as it goes into the mountain again and then comes out into this block section. The majority of this coaster has been custom supported. Occasionally I've used one of the auto-generated supports like here, but then in a lot of occasions they just look too clunky, and I liked the fact that I wanted it to be suspended, so I've used single struts. Now how realistic they are I don't know, but it's not really something that I'm really familiar with. Where it felt like it needed something a bit more substantial, I've put some extra struts in just to give them a bit more support. And so going into this roll just here, there are quite a few extra supports that are anchored into the mountain, and hopefully it feels quite realistic without being overly done and being too cluttered. Then after coming through the block section, it enters this vertical loop just here, and then it goes into this lift hill. Now the coaster does have nearly enough momentum to get all the way up to the top of the lift hill without engaging, but it then dives back into this tunnel through the mountain into the final section. So as it comes over the top of the lift hill into that tunnel, it then enters a 360 spin. I don't know if you'd class that as a helix, but then it enters a heartline roll just here and then goes off into another tunnel just there, which takes it round behind the entrance, and then it emerges just here and goes back under the path, what will be a path in the future, and then it emerges here back into the station. Now there are a couple of block sections, one that we've already seen around the back, and there is another block section underneath this area just here, which allows me to run 3 trains on this track. So the final thing that we need to do is ride the coaster, and I'll talk you around as we go. So we come out of the station into the lift hill, and I think the snow really does make it seem very atmospheric, and it does really set the scene for this alpine location around the top of this mountain. And I wanted to try and make the coaster use as much of the natural topography of this mountain as I could. So I've not changed it a great deal. I've raised and lowered some of the heights just to make the support seem less obvious. But we dive through this tunnel and then go over the top of the block section, which is quite nice, through the gap that was created by taking off the top of the mountain, and then we dive down into this hairpin bend into my favourite section, and this roll here just feels so natural as it rolls over and then goes into the hill, through the block section and down it into the vertical loop into the lift hill. Now it really only just needs a little bit of extra push just to get it over the top of this lift hill, down into the next tunnel before entering the 360 helix just to loop round back into this heartline roll just here. Then we go round into the final section through this final tunnel to take it behind the entrance. We emerge back with the Christmas tree on the right, which is a helter-skelter, back into the final tunnel and the block section, and just await the station to clear before going back into the station. Thanks a lot for watching that video. I do intend doing more to this village, but I wanted to get out what I've done so far before Christmas, just so you could see what I've been doing up to this point. So as I improve and add to the village, I'll upload more videos to show you what I've been doing. If you have enjoyed this video, then you can do me a really big favor by clicking the like, subscribe and the bell notifications to help out the channel. But all that's left now is to say have a great Christmas, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.